Hey BookTube, time for a weekly wrap-up.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
I'm Jen, and I talk about audiobooks, and I thought I would let you know what I read last week, what I listened to. Two things I read, I actually read in print. They are from my TBR shelves. I'm kind of trying to be faithful about working through those, kind of get serious about getting this stuff read. There's way too many books here. And the first was Whatever Life Throws at You. This is by Julie Cross, and I really like Julie Cross as an author. She's quickly becoming one of my auto-buy authors. She writes young adult fiction, and then she wrote a new adult book called Third Degree, which I got to beta read, and it is so funny, so good. And this now is about baseball. So you've got this boy who is a phenomenon who has been discovered when he was in juvenile detention. Apparently he has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and the Kansas City Royals want to bring him in and sort of put him on probation for 3 months and try him out to see if he's going to work with the team. And then Annie's dad is a pitching coach. He's a former baseball star, and he gets recruited to come and coach this kid. So the trope here is that she can't get involved with him, and he can't have her because her dad would have a fit. So it's kind of the story of that. And this is a really good look at how a girl has to hold her family together and do a lot of grown-up things, and yet she's still a 17-year-old. And so she has to realize that it's okay for her to do some 17-year-old things, and yet she has to be responsible for those. And she is completely devoted to her dad, and that's a part of the story that I loved, because the adults that are close to the main character in this story are really, really good people, and I always appreciate that. So, good story, really examined from all kinds of angles, and just well written. I was really impressed, so I gave this one 4 stars. And the other one was Parallel. This is by Lauren Miller, and this is the story of Abby, who is the only person who can keep her memories when 2 parallel worlds collide, and no one else in the world, or at least that we know of, can do that. So it's told from a 2-perspective viewpoint here and there, and essentially that's one of the parallel worlds is a year behind real time. So you have your main character in real time, and then you have the parallel world where everything is happening a year previous. So main character has to deal with all of the decisions that the parallel character the year before has been making. So it gets a little bit confusing, and the science isn't too well explained, but there is a wonderful female friendship in this book that I really liked, and kind of a moral of the story ending, and I thought it was really good. I liked it, but I didn't love this. I don't think this was one of those really loved it, oh gosh, on the edge of 5-star books. I think it was an enjoyable story. I ended up rating it 3 stars, and I would recommend it. It's YA, it has some really good characters in it, and if you can follow the science and keep up with it, then I would recommend it. I think it's a good book. So now let me tell you about the audiobooks that I read. The first was Duplicity. This is by N.K. Traver, and it is narrated on audio by McLeod Andrews, who is spectacular, and this book would not be nearly as good as it is if he had not narrated it. He's just so able to bring a character to life and a world to life, and just the way he does it. You're right there in the action, and all the dialogue is so well timed, just in cadence, and the way he delivers the lines, it's so good. He's so talented. Well, this book is all about a computer hacker kid who is in high school. I think he's a junior in high school, and he's brilliant, of course. And he's pretty much ignored by his parents. He's an only child, so he is rebelling against them by getting lots of tattoos and piercings and getting in trouble and just doing whatever he can to kind of grandstand for their attention. He has a really bad attitude about pretty much everything. He doesn't really care about much because he feels like nobody cares about him. He has a girlfriend, and he kind of blows her off, and she's really good for him. So it starts out when his computer starts talking to him and saying, "You were not very nice to your girlfriend yesterday." And he's like, how can this be happening? So anytime he's around a mirror, something about him changes, and things start changing, like all his piercings disappear and his tattoos start to disappear, his clothing changes, and pretty soon he gets sucked into his computer, his consciousness does. and has to serve out a 20-year sentence in cyber prison and is replaced with another kind of guy who is in his body using it, but is like an artificial intelligence. And the whole thing, the way it works, gets explained in an interesting way that kind of makes sense. And it's all about him trying to break out of this prison and get his life back. So this is YA. It moves really fast. It's got great characters, and the science is kind of unbelievable. You have to really suspend your disbelief. But if you can, then it's a really enjoyable story. It has some places that the plot goes that you go, what? I don't know. But that's okay, because in the end, it's a good story. I liked it, and I gave it 3 stars. One of you recommended that I read Making Faces by Amy Harmon. This is narrated on audio by Rob Shapiro, and it was so good. Rob Shapiro was so good, so talented, so able to bring this story to life in all the right ways that a narrator should. I don't know that any one thing about it stood out to me in terms of the narration, but I can tell you that he is a very talented guy. This book is not what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be straight up new adult romance. Oh no. It's almost literary fiction. It's a character study of 3 main characters. You have a guy who is the golden boy in high school, and he's good looking, he's talented, everyone expects him to go to college on a sports scholarship. Instead, he goes into the army, taking his posse of guys from high school with him, and they all get killed, and he is the lone survivor coming home, having been very badly disfigured, and having to kind of re-enter his life. Then you have a young girl who is so head in the clouds, very kind of quirky. She wants to be a romance novelist, and she kind of lives in a romance novel kind of rosy-colored world. And she's been in love with the guy who went to Iraq forever. So it deals with the way she sees him, and either continues to see him or sees him now in new ways because he's changed. And then her best friend, who has lived next door to her for forever, and he's a great guy. He has MS. And so it's also the story of how he is dealing with his illness and the fact that he's cheating death, basically. And then the way that who he is and how he's doing that interacts with this guy that has come back. So, oh my gosh, so good. A little bit of a tearjerker. Just the way that these characters interact and the way that they are, just the way that the story goes. It is not really plot driven, it's character driven. For the most part, although the plot does take some turns, and so I loved it. I really loved it, and I gave it 4 stars. I read The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemison. On audio, this is narrated by Robin Miles. Robin Miles is so talented. This is the week of the amazing narrators, I guess. She has over 180 books to her credit that she's done on Audible, and she's just so talented. She was the perfect voice for this book. And I'm not sure if that's because she knew the book needed that voice or because she just is that voice. But she was perfect in terms of being very unemotional and being able to convey all of the things about this main character that you needed to feel as well as know. I thought that the narration was exceptional. This is post-apocalyptic adult sci-fi, and it is one of the shortlisted books in the BookTube SFF Awards. And in fact, there's a group there that you can go, and they're doing read-alongs of all the books, so you can kind of get in on the conversation about this book. I did not expect to like this book at all. And in fact, when I first started it, I had put it aside because I couldn't get into it. But once you do, if you can stick with it for a very short amount of time, because I have no attention span, it's so worth it. I would never have thought that I would get to the end of this book and really want the next book, which I really do. It's about a world that is all based on geology. It's told in 3 parts. But part of my issue with this book about not knowing if I would like it is that it is not a linear narrative. It's not like one part and then the next part and then the next part. They're interwoven, and so it's not linear. It jumps a little bit, and it wasn't hard to keep track of, but the way that it pulls together at the end was so innovative, I thought, because I don't read that kind of stuff probably, but I really loved it. I'll do a complete review on this, but I would really encourage you to go over to the Goodreads group and get in on the discussion there, and I gave that one 4 stars. Amazing book. And lastly, I read And Again. This is by Jessica Chiarella, and it is narrated from 4 points of view by Julia Whelan, Joy Osmonski, Corey Brill, and Rebekah Ross. And this is literary fiction with a sci-fi premise, all about cloning. I thought I would love this book because I heard about it from Joss at Squibbles Reads. She recommended it so highly. It's a 5-star book, possibly the best book for her of 2015. And I thought, ooh, I'm probably going to love that. Well, no, I didn't love it. I liked it, and I think it is an excellent book, and it is, I don't know if I'd say brilliantly written, but it is very well written. But I had a lot of problems with it, and they really didn't have to do with the writing or the way that the story was constructed, but rather the way that the characters behaved. But I'll do a review on that, and I'll link that, and I will tell you all about there. I gave that one 3 stars. And that is it for last week. Now this week I picked up one book off my TBR shelves here called Magnolia. This is YA. I don't think it's romance. I think it's just YA contemporary. 2 kids who've lived next to each other all their lives. Their families expect for them to get together, and yet they can't stand each other. So it should be interesting. It's set in the South, so that'll be good. And then on audio, I'm listening to The Gifting. This is by K.E. Ganshert. It's narrated by Heather Masters, and it is YA dystopian, but I think it's a God book. I think it's got some God elements to it, so we'll see about that. And that is it. So if you've read any of these books, let me know your opinion, because, you know, I had such a gamut of reading. Most of it was fabulous. So let me know what you thought. If you read any of these books, you know, did you love them? Did you not love them? What did you think? And that is it for now from me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.